All right, welcome to the 23rd of November 2020. I'm so happy today because November is almost over and then we get to December, then it's the end of the year, then it's Christmas, right? All right, good to have you today on this Monday on Youth Assembly. My name is Sylvia Ishebe. Well, today we'll be looking at the end SARS aftermath, how to restore law and order amidst the rising cases of crime in Nigeria. Now, following the hijack of the end SARS protest by hoodlums who killed police officers, burnt down police stations, and carted away weapons in the attacks, some states like Lagos, Osun, Edo, Port Harcourt, or Rivers rather, are currently witnessing a spike in reported cases of traffic violations, armed robbery, and cult clashes. Now, as states begin to rebuild the states, the question on the lips of many Nigerians is, when will law and order be fully restored? Well, that's the question we want to answer today on the show, as I have with me Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a security risk management expert. Welcome, Mr. Kabir.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's my pleasure to be here. Good morning, all.
Good morning. And we also have Mr. Adelani Adepeba, who is a journalist. Welcome, Mr. Adelani.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, following what is happening in some states in Nigeria, many Nigerians are currently feeling the impact of the violence that occurred when the protest was hijacked. So, what do you think, as a security expert, that security agencies could do or would have done differently to prevent the violence that happened during the protest, Mr. Kabir?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And you're right. We found ourselves in a situation where, unfortunately, a lot of people were killed. At the last count, over almost about 60 civilians, then I think about 37, 38 police, and then about 7 military officers were killed. Property in their hundreds were destroyed. And then, of course, the vandalism that followed it. Now, what could the security agencies have done differently? Number one, intelligence. Intelligence that would give them forewarning, because the essence of intelligence is to give a forewarning, and then you can plan ahead. By planning ahead, you will now either prevent it or reduce the consequences. Unfortunately, it appeared for some reasons the security agencies did not have that intelligence, or even if they had, they didn't work on the intelligence. So we were caught napping, as it were. And then we saw some knee-jerk reactions, including what happened at the Lekki toll gate, even though the details are still, trying to be established, or at least we know something happened. We also saw the kind of incidences that happened in Edo State, where correctional services were invaded and convicts and some prisoners were freed. Then the one that worries me more than all the other ones is the invasion of the armories of some of these security agencies, police formations. I think about 200 of them, even though the IG of police has established a committee to establish this. But at the last count, we were told about 200 police formations were either destroyed or vandalized. Armories of these police divisions were broken into, and then the weapons as well as ammunition in them were stolen. So clearly, there was a failure of intelligence. There was a failure of response to prevent the type of destruction and vandalism that we saw. The third thing, which security agencies could have done better, was gathering the support of the local population. I know it's a bit difficult because the reason for the EndSARS is the police itself. So it will be a bit difficult for the police to get the support of the citizens. But at some point, a lot of Nigerians were unhappy with the circumstances surrounding both the EndSARS protest, the riots that followed the EndSARS protest, and then the vandalism that was also associated with the fallout of the EndSARS protest. So it would have been easy for the security agencies to galvanize the support of Nigerians along the line of maintaining law and order, because all of us want law and order. What we don't want is extrajudicial killing.
Yes, but some people will argue that some of the protesters were actually protesting against the police, and so they really didn't have much to do and just sit and watch people take law into their hands. So for Mr. Adelani, who is a journalist, what do you think they should have done? Same question. They should have done differently to make sure that peace and order was actually experienced in some of the states.
Yeah, I want to align with what my good friend Mr. Kabira said. But before we get to that junction, one aspect that most people have not really dwell on is the fact that the protest was actually very peaceful until the security agencies brought in hoodlums to counter the protesters. In Abuja here, we saw footages of some people in. I personally saw them at Wuse 2. I saw two guys in um, Range Rovers and some other exotic cars leading hoodlums. The hoodlums were holding knives, they were holding stones. I actually parked my car to ease myself along the road when I saw them, and some of them were even pointing at me that I better leave that place now. Then I followed them. They were leading the hoodlums all over the place looking for protesters. The same thing happened in Lagos and some other states. It was after the protest ended that the hoodlums now knew that when they felt that they have official backing, they now went on the loose and started killing and harassing people and burning properties and vandalizing shops. So we must not forget the role that the security agencies themselves played with the backing of the government. Even in Abuja, there was a picture of a police van being used to convey hoodlums. I saw the picture and I posted it. I sent it to the first PRO, the first public relations officer, Frank Mba. You couldn't argue it because the thing was very clear. They showed Kubwa police division.
But
That
but
was
the
what was
police
written
are
in the
also, yes, they're also counting their losses. The police already, the IGP and some of the governors have announced some of the measures that they are taking, measures of compensation that they want to take. And so, do you think these measures are enough to get the police back on track, or what can be done to get them back on track and start rebuilding the states?
Yeah, I believe what they have done so far is important, but more importantly is for them to get the public to trust them again, because that is very, very key. Now we have cases of, if you are following the proceedings at the various panels set up by the state government, you have cases, different stories from people who have gone through terrible treatment, maltreatment from the police. You have people who have lost their pregnancies. People have been. So the first thing they need to do is to restore public confidence, because no matter what you do, even if you give them the best equipment, you pay them fast salaries, if the public do not have confidence in them, they cannot succeed. So we need to bridge that gap between the public and the police. Apart from other things we need to address, like their welfare, like giving them the necessary infrastructure and operational assets they need to succeed.
Okay, Dr. Kabir, what do you think about this approach by the IGP and some of the governors setting up compensation measures to help tackle some of the things that their states have witnessed? Do you think this is enough, or what can they do to help in this situation?
Well, first off, let me sort of dissociate myself with the statement by my very good friend there, the journalist. Maybe he knows more than I know when he said hoodlums were brought in by the police. I think that's a grave statement. I hope as a journalist he has his facts and that he can publish those facts. Otherwise, then I think he needs to edit that statement. I think the consequences of such a statement is quite grave. Having said that, what I would suggest going forward is, yes, what the governors have started is good. The police and other security agencies, as well as anyone who lost his life, needs to be first investigated and then compensated. So we know that there are panels that have been established as at this morning, I think in about 30 states. And those panels are looking at the atrocities allegedly committed by the police. and would, recommend restitution and compensation for those families. But who is doing that for the police? I mentioned in my earlier statement that about 37 police were killed. So who is going to be held accountable for that? We're not hearing any action in that regard. So that's, I think, number one. The federal government needs to perhaps include as part of the terms of reference of the National Human Rights Commission panel here in Abuja, the need to also look into those 38 plus police that were killed as a result of both the SARS protests, the vandalism, as well as the riots that were all sort of intertwined. Someone needs to be held accountable, and only a valid investigation would find out who it is. And that's one. Two, the kind of messaging, we need to separate, and I call it strategic communication. We need to separate what we consider as bad policing from the good policing. There is no society that would, survive without security, and the front agency for provision of that security, for internal security, is the police. Now, we agree that there are bad police, but there are also very good police officers. So in our strategic communication, we need to separate that bad from the good, so that the good ones are not left demoralized. I can tell you that at the moment, a lot of them are demoralized. And so going forward, we need to use that strategic communication so that we help bolster the morale of those good ones while we're in the effort of, as it were, removing those bad ones. So in terms of going forward, that's, I think, number one, what I recommend. Number two is ensuring justice for those 37 or 38 persons, police officers that were killed. And then more importantly, their families, the survivors, they should be given some form of compensation. And I've recommended elsewhere that perhaps declaring a day of national mourning for all the victims of all of this, the NSAS protests, the riots, the protests, then for the police itself, flying their flag at half-mast on a particular day, or creating a star emblem like we have all over the world, where any fallen officer is represented on that star. Then a cenotaph too. The police headquarters can, if they don't have one, construct a cenotaph, which is symbolic. And then from time to time, the IG or whoever it is, the IG at that time, can go to that cenotaph as a mark of respect and remembrance for those officers that died. And that would tell serving officers that the nation cares about them, and that, God forbid, if they fall, then they would be recognized, and their families too would be taken care of. Right now, I'm not seeing that kind of action. But remember, so that we don't jump the gun, the IG has constituted a committee, and the work of that committee is to establish the death, establish the damages, and then I'm hoping that the committee will make this kind of recommendations that we're discussing at the moment.
All right, we have another security expert right here. Here's Celeste, Mr. Celeste Ibechuku. Welcome to Youth Assembly on Click Naija Radio. Good to have you. Good to have you, Mr. Celeste. Okay, while we try to sort that out. Okay, Mr. Adelani is also here. Okay. You can unmute your mic. We can't hear you, Mr. Celeste. Yes.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Okay. Now that we have you, good to have you. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I've got some of our.
Can you hear me?
Yes, definitely. We're hearing you loud and clear.
All right.
So we've heard what some of the guests here have said, and what is your own opinion on what you think can be done, especially in regards to the weapons, the violence that ensued, and the weapons that were stolen? And we know that there is a strong linkage between the proliferation of arms and crime. So what do you think security agencies should be doing to retrieve most of the arms in the hands of hoodlums? Mr. Ibe.
Well, I think, thank you. Very careful strategy. Otherwise, you cause more harm. If you can look at the aftermath of the incident, You already know that we have more ammunition in circulation, leading to more violence on the street, armed clash between security forces and bandits and other criminals. So they are absolutely not what you can use force to get back. So I think there should be more room for engagement. There should be more. The truth is, the country itself has not been on a balanced ground where people can get to see what they have been promised. For example, you've seen in the past where some individuals may want to willingly give up the arms that they acquired on their own, and at the end of the day, they feel betrayed, by same government who promised to give amnesty. And then, so it has to be, a kind of careful kind of trade, so we don't make the matter worse. And judging from some of the approaches that the government are imbibing for now, I don't think I will be able to, I do not even subscribe to most of them. Hence, we know there is a problem on ground, and those problems have to do with people being aggrieved for, whatever reason they know. And then they brought something to the table. Some other criminals get to buy into their ideas and then began to unleash mayhems and the rest of them. So I think it is really going to be a careful kind of operations where the masses don't get the hit more, because that's where it's going to get that.
So do you have an idea of what kind of careful measure that they can take in order to retrieve these arms?
Of course, there are lots of community engagement that the government can explore. Things like using the what do you call it, the PCRC, which you call the Police Community Relations Committee, using other means of engagement with even the people who works at the motor park and the rest of them have linked with most of the criminals. Can there be some kind of programs that brings about some kind of incentive to bring them together, to talk about, happenings in our society and see how they can help to cope. The truth is, you really need the people in the same society to be able to solve certain problems. Most of the trouble we have faced here is local, and we require local approaches to be able to nip them to the bud.
Okay, interesting. Thank you so much, Mr. Celestin. Okay, back to you, Mr. Adelani. You're still there with us? Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay, so what is your own take on the issue on ground in terms of hoodlums who have arms with them? How can how do you think security agencies can retrieve these arms safely?
I believe one of the things that is key this time is community engagement, as Celestine just mentioned. They will need to work with the community leaders, with grassroots people, because the people know themselves and they know those who are miscreants or those who are criminally inclined, who may have some of these arms in their possession. And of course, intelligence too is key. If the police and other security agencies are working together, they collaborate strategically, they'll be able to achieve more than if they work alone. So this is an area that I think they need to explore. If we have the police, we have the DSS and other security agencies and intelligence agencies, they work together using their own connections and intelligence sources. They'll be able to track down some of these missing arms and move them up from the underground.
Okay, Mr. Kabir.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Before I ask you a question, but if in case you just tuned in, it is Youth Assembly on Click Naija online radio. We are treating the topic EndSARS aftermath, how to restore law and order amidst rising cases of crime in Nigeria. Well, the question we have for you, or we put out there, is how is the security situation in your area? Let us know. And if you have questions for the security experts and even the journalists, you can let us know and then they will answer, I think. Okay, so Dr. Kabir?
Yeah.
Back to you. So we've seen jailbreaks happening in those states. Weeks ago, the correctional facilities in the states witnessed some kind of a hijack from hoodlums, and then people, prisoners, escaped. What do you think went wrong there at this correctional facility that made it so easy for prisoners to escape, like just like that?
It appears it was part of a design. At the point, I called it, an anarchy theory. Someone somewhere hatched that theory because if it's an anarchy situation, it's like you roll a ball, and as you are rolling the ball is gathering dust. So you take advantage of that dust, and then you perpetrate the act. So the peaceful protest was the ball, but then the dust generated by that peaceful protest was capitalized upon by several what I would call centrifugal forces, including whoever these were, that they now attacked these correctional centers, or in the case of some of them in Lagos, sent messages, because that's what we're hearing. They send messages to the inmates to inform them that, look, oh, this is what's happening outside, so you can take advantage of that.
How did they get to receive these messages? I mean, some people say that there's a maximum security facilities where the prisoners were.
The reality is that privileged prisoners have phones inside. And even where they don't have phones, they have informants that are able to reach them and tell them these things. So clearly, they knew what was happening outside. And in one of the correctional centers, they actually set the place on fire. And then when the fire started, they attempted to escape. So clearly, they knew what was happening outside, and they knew that there was some form of chaos, or like I mentioned earlier on, this anarchy situation, and they wanted to take advantage of the anarchy situation. I generally don't like the labeling hoodlum, because it labels certain individuals, but there were persons who clearly had a mandate. Someone instructed them to do certain things, including, for instance, helping these inmates to escape. In the case of Edo, we saw how they attempted to create a hole in the walls of the correctional centers to aid the escape, or even provide ladders for them to jump over the walls. So yes, it was both an insider job as well as the collaboration of outsiders. And like we said earlier on, it was nothing but a failure or inability of security agencies to first, use intelligence to prevent that from happening, and then even while it was happening, to stop it from happening. The good news, and I'm really happy, I've had Governor Obaseki. He's spoken like political leader. He's called a co-discussant, was talking about engagement, and that's the message. And I think the governor was mentioning. He tried to reach out, persuade them, and then once the persuasion ends, I know the military entered, and then they are now trying to round them up. It will be a bit difficult, really, given the porosity of our borders, given the absence of identity.
I mean, even in those states, is witnessing some kind of clashes from cult groups, and insecurity here and there. Would this be the impact of the release of the jailbreak? And how can even the prison services, prevent jailbreaks from happening in states like this? Let me hear from the security expert, Ibe Celestin. Welcome back.
Sorry, I've been having quite a little some problem with the connection here.
It's
But
okay.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, definitely we can.
All right.
All
Please,
right, go ahead.
let me get back your question, please.
All right, so the Edo states where the jailbreak happened. How can the prison services prevent jailbreaks from happening? I mean, Dr. Kabir has really given us some insight into why it was so easy for prisoners to escape from these correctional facilities.
I'll tell you something that many of us don't know. Every single thing you see that happens and becomes a bit successful is because people who are therein decided to be loyal to authorities. Even in the homes, you could see that wives are submissive because they've given you their loyalty. Once you push that person to the wall and the person removes that loyalty, the person becomes wild. So how many guards, how many armed guards do we have in our prison walls? How many? Have you taken time to look at that? We don't actually see the problems that may come beforehand. I have been privileged to visit some of the prisons we have here. And sometimes in the night we have but few guards on duty. So if 10 inmates decide to react over certain things, don't you think they could disarm those people and get out? So the truth is there is actually a big problem, a big gap in the society, and then we are not able to manage the resources the way it should be managed. That is the simple truth. I overheard what the internet may not have permitted me to get the right comment, but I heard someone looking about considering the porous of our borders. Why should the border be porous in the first place? If you check now, we have less than 15,000 or maybe a little above 15,000 immigration officers in the whole country. Above 18,000 custom officers in the whole country. So if you put them live cover. So the truth is there are so many things that have to be looked into holistically as a nation, and as we discuss most of these things on through the media, the leaders can listen and understand exactly the direction we should be going. So there is a porous system, to be frank, but understand that we have to work to see that we return these things to the way they should, so that people do not get to react. Let me give you another example. People who are in detention, some of them in awaiting trial today, whose cases have never been mentioned because nobody is actually pushing for the case, and they are there wasting their entire life. Some of them are 10 years in and awaiting trial. The cases are not being called up, and the rest of them. This person is already thinking that his life is finished, so he can do whatever he wants. So are we really taking time to be able to understand that there is a system that needs to be worked on? The judicial system, how can we fix things? Even people who are in detention, how can we better the condition of those places where they are in? So that they don't get to react one day.
Even stories of some of the prisoners who have escaped, taking laws into their hands to go find the people who actually put them in prison, taking laws into
the point. But that is, it's called a correctional center. And the correctional center should be a place of pampering, a place of helping people to understand, a place of counseling where people need to know, I have done something wrong in the society. I need to be, my psyche need to be worked on, my psychology have to come back to normal. They should feel I need to get back and get to be reintegrated into the society, not to be treated the other way around. So the truth, like I'm saying, is so many things are actually not right. And that is actually where the problem is coming from. If these things can be fixed, to be frank, you can tell someone, sit here, and the person will be able to see it.
All right, let's hear from the journalist now. Mr. Adelani.
I'm here with you.
So what do you think people can do, the masses can do to help make it easier for security agencies and even the governors of the state to retrieve those prisoners that are hiding in the society, and also, to retrieve them? What do you think they can do?
I think the first thing the people need to know is that those people are a threat to the society. Once they know that these people are a threat and that they deserve to be put back behind the walls, you will get their cooperation. But if people feel that by protecting the fugitives or by helping them to escape, they are actually doing the right thing, if they don't see any wrong in that, then it will be very hard for you to get back some of those fleeing inmates. So the first thing people need to know, there must be a lot of sensitization for people to know that this is their duty, this is the right thing for them to do. Like a few weeks ago, I spoke with the spokesperson of the prison service, and he said they are planning to publish their names and pictures. That the names and pictures of the inmates, of the fleeing inmates. I don't know whether this has been done, but that was.
Mr. Delany.
And I believe in galvanizing the necessary support for the prison service. Apart from this, the condition in the prison service is very, very terrible. And this is something the government must bring to the front burner and address. Just like Celestine said earlier, when you go to the prisons, there are a lot of people who are not supposed to be there, who are.
Okay, Mr. Delany, I think we'll get back make out what you're saying.
They are grieved, and they, of course, they
yes.
want.
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, these people are grieved, and of course, when they get opportunity to escape, they won't miss it.
Okay, Mr. Kabir.
Yes,
over to you. How do you think the relationship between the police and citizens can be improved on? I mean, crime prevention is a collective effort, right, between security agencies and citizens. In order to make this happen, there needs to be a good rapport between police and citizens. But we don't see that, unfortunately, not see that happen a lot in this climate. But how do you think the relationship between the police and the citizens can be improved on going forward?
Honestly, that it's a tall order, mainly because there is this deep mistrust. Now, the best way to correct that is, I would say, from the beginning, through training of police, let them understand that they are working for actually citizens, for Nigerians. So, in fact, under no circumstances should they use their weapons against law-abiding citizens. The kind of extrajudicial killings that led to the SARS protest should never have happened. And now that it has happened, there should be acceptance by the police institution. They should accept that they've done wrong. They should apologize as a whole. And then, like I said earlier on at the beginning, they should commence this strategic messaging where they separate what was bad that we rejected and then put forward what is good, so that we will embrace what is good after they have apologized. And already the vice president has apologized. So I think every other person now in the leadership of the police, the minister of police affairs, name them, they also need to follow up with that apology and then put forward, like the president has done, a commitment that what we all rejected will no longer be, and that a new police, a reformed police, is what we'll see going forward. Maybe if that is done, then Nigerians will start trusting the police. But for as long as they are using their weapons, like what happened unfortunately the other day on Shehu Shagari route, and then just over the weekend in Ekiti, then I'm sorry to say that trust will not ever, it will be rebuilt.
Okay, but some of these security agencies, police officers in Nigeria, they are the most unappreciated in our society, because citizens have looked at it and are wondering, what can we do in our own little way to boost the capacity and the morale of honest and hardworking security agents. I mean, we've had right here on Click Naija, last week we actually awarded a security official, a police officer, for his good work. We recognized him and awarded him, and this brought tears to his eyes. People were wondering, how did we fish out this person and give this person an award? So for police officers like that, you mentioned earlier that there are good and bad police officers. What can we do as individuals, not just waiting for government and people who are up there in the society to do the needful? What can we do to help, make the rapport happen effectively?
Simple terms, continue to recognize them. I remember at the height of the SARS protest, and once the vandalism and the riot started, a police officer in Kano was recognized because he served as a buffer. He stopped a violence that could have continued and degenerated. He did that, and the social media recognized him. But before you know it, he became a celebrity. Then in the same Kano, you recall when the former commissioner, who is now retired, how social media brought him out and he was celebrated. So I think let's continue to recognize the good police officers through our social media activities, through direct recognition. When we see them, let's go and thank them. Let's say hello to them. Let's thank them for all the good work they're doing. That will go a long way. I mean, in Borno State, at the height of the NSAS protest, they recognized a SARS official for his good work, and it was covered by mainstream media. So that kind of recognition will continue to go a long way. You know, every single effort or expression of appreciation or kindness is recognition, and it will go a long way towards encouraging them and boosting their morale. In fact, even the bad ones, if at some point, once they see their colleagues getting recognition, they should ask themselves, these guys are getting recognized. Yeah. They are loved. How come? What are we doing wrong that people are not? So in simple terms, it's recognition and appreciation of the work they are doing.
By the way, the sergeant's name is Sergeant Saka Omar, who was a frontline traffic police during the COVID-19 lockdown. You know, he's so prominent in this area of Nigeria, in Abuja. So you see him doing the side and not getting tired on the rain, on the sun, and doing his work judiciary. So we celebrate you, Sergeant Saka. Okay, back to you, Mr. Ibe, and the journalist. The final question we have here is, we know the protest has finished, has ended, and the festive season is here. So, what must our security agencies do to restore peace and order since we're in the Ember months, since we're almost in December? I mean, I started earlier with this hooray, we're in December already, almost in December. So, what can we do, or what can the security agencies do to restore law and order in states across Nigeria? Mr. Ibe. Can you hear me? Oh, we take Mr. Delany, if you can hear me.
Sure, I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Delany, go ahead.
Okay, I think one of the first things they need to do is to dominate the public space as directed by the Inspector General. Because some of the places they used to occupy, which have been taken over by hoodlums and miscreants, they need to take it back. And apart from that, the public also needs to support them, because we must know that these people are working for the protection of everybody. They're not just on the street to earn salaries. It goes beyond that. They're putting their lives on the line. So when we all work together, when there's synergy between the security agencies and the people, then you have a safer society. That's why people will always tell you that when you go abroad, you don't see many policemen everywhere. Why? Because when they see something that is not, when the citizens see something that's not right, they quickly inform the police. But yeah, most people, when they see something going wrong, they may not even bother to call. So it is important for the police to go back to their duty post, and also for the public to support them in whatever way they could.
Okay, and for the season that we're in, how best do you think they should go about security in the States?
Well, for now, what they need to do now, because we know that crime is actually spiraling now because of because this is the youth season. So the police need to be, or let me say, the security agencies, they need to deploy more intelligence. Okay. That is very, very key. They need to be more proactive. They don't need to wait to do catch up with the criminals. They need to be at their best. They need to deploy their intelligence assets. And of course, they need to work more with the grassroots, with community leaders, with the youth. And then once this is done, I'm sure they'll be on top of their game.
All right, thank you so much. And Dr. Kabir, what do you have to say on that issue as we wrap up?
The police, they've started well. The last 2 weeks, they released an infographic which contains advisory on what you should do in the Ember period when you are traveling, as an example, in your houses, offices, and all that. So that's good. That infographic is actually good. It went viral. I belong to a lot of security groups, and before you know it, almost all the security groups were circulating it. And I'm sure that's how it went to others too. So they should continue along that line. In today's world, social media provides an avenue for advocacy. So they should embrace that avenue and send out such advisory, telling people what to do, how to behave in certain circumstances, what you can do to increase your security in the public space. That's really important. Then, like Adilani had mentioned, dominating the public space, not necessarily with visibility, but I always recommend the use of technology. They've told us, even though I'm doubtful, that the surveillance capabilities they have are working in Abuja and Lagos, all those CCTV cameras. So if it's true they are working, let them use them. Just over the weekend, I had the case of one chance is increasing in Abuja. How people are robbed of their sometimes their valuables and even injured. So they need to take advantage of technology and then do all these think operations where some of them sometimes would be passengers. Go out there, let them now face eye to eye the perpetrators of one chance, arrest them in the course of their work, and then prosecute them. They would have evidence enough in that instance to prosecute them. So simple domination of the space, the use of technology, I think is the way to go about it. And then more importantly, provide telephone numbers, active telephone numbers. Told the 122 number is working now. So send it out there, continue repeating it so that people know if they're in emergency situations, they can call and there will be response immediately.
All right, over to you, Mr. Celestine Ibechukwu. What do you have to say as we are in the season of the U-turn? So, how can people keep safe and security agencies provide security for the populace?
In the first place, I don't know. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. In the first place, we have to ourselves raise additional caution the way we do things. We are the first security respondent, even much more than the police. And then we now have to support their own network. I'm very certain that the Nigerian police framework is actually not bad. They are good people, they receive good training. We may have our individual differences. Please, at least let's understand that they have been professional, in the past. But with the trouble we have currently, which has to do with this aftermath SARS protest, we are not expecting things to get better soon, because the presence of police on the highway has reduced, of course, since after this incident. If you have traveled on the highways, you will notice what I'm saying. And also to those who are out there, their approach to things is also beginning to change. So I think that's a good that's a good point and a good way to go. But I think we have to raise more awareness on the populace themselves. We should know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ibechukwu, Celestine Ibechukwu, who is a security expert. Well, that is the much we can take today on the show, as we have looked at the NSAS aftermath, how to restore law and order amidst rising cases of crime in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Celestine Ibechukwu, once again. And to you, Dr. Kabir Adamu, security risk management expert, thank you also for your time and for giving insight into what needs to be done for the country to be safe.
Thank you, Sylvia, for having me.
All right, Adelani, yes, I won't forget. Adelani Adepeba is a journalist, and thank you for your time and for giving us all of the information that we needed at this time.
Pleasure.
Okay, so call the toll-free line 112 in case of emergency, and then you report your cases to the right authorities. My name is Sylvia Ishebe, and our Youth Assembly will say stay safe and keep doing the right thing. But we'll make a return tomorrow at 10 a.m. West African time for another interesting edition of Youth Assembly. My producer has been Ihioma Ukeje, supervised by Ehi Ohiani. We'll make a return tomorrow. Continue to listen to us at www.clicknaija.net. Follow us on our YouTube, on our Instagram and Twitter handles as they are scrolling right there at the bottom of the screen. See you tomorrow and have a safe day. Bye for now, gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.